Welcome to another episode of Chasing the Wind. I'm Pastor Mark. Let's see where the wind is blowing today. So I find myself in my reading in the book of Hebrews, and there's this little verse, this little part of Hebrews has been popping up in front of me the last couple of days, and I just kind of want to ponder it a little bit with you, unpack it a little bit with you, and see where it goes, see what God might be saying to us, or to me, or you. We'll see what happens. Anyway, Hebrews 12, 14 and 15. I'm going to just kind of tie those two together. Make every effort to live in peace with all men and to be holy. Without holiness, no one can see the Lord. See to it that no one misses the grace of God and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. Let's stop right there for a minute. I was pondering this a little bit, and I was thinking about roots. My wife and I have recently cleared out our garden, and it's fascinating to me how far roots will go with a plant. I see this as where I live is surrounded by woods, and I got to watch when I mow that I don't cut the tops off of tree roots. And it's amazing to me how far roots will go. And then also amazes me sometimes when I think about like conifers, like pine trees and stuff. They don't have deep roots; they're only like 3 feet deep and wide. And they hold this big tall tree up until a good wind comes by and then knocks them over. Same thing with palms. But I was thinking about this word root and thinking about roots and what a root does. It obviously feeds the plant, but there's a part of it that the root helps hold the plant in place. And so it is, in one sense, what came to me as I was pondering this is it is a stronghold in one sense. Hopefully, for the plant anyway, it's a good stronghold. Unless, of course, you're trying to get rid of a stump in your yard, and then those roots become kind of a pain in the neck. Or if you're trying to pull up roots from, like, say, sweet corn or sunflower or something like that, then it's like, oh, you break your back pulling them out. But I was thinking about it, and I felt like the Lord was talking to me about the idea of roots being strongholds. So let's just talk about that a little bit, how a root, especially where where the writer of Hebrews, it could be Paul, Hebrews talks about roots of bitterness, or as the NIV said, no bitter root. Bitterness is an interesting thing, but thinking about bitterness it leads to, as it says here, trouble, and it defiles many. Now, what's interesting is that we're told, make every effort to live in peace with all men and to be holy. Sometimes the best way we can make peace with certain people is to love them from a distance, as Tracy Strawberry says. Some people are so toxic that it's just not good for them. It's not good for us to be with them. And the best way we can live at peace with them is to keep a little distance from them. Sometimes it means that we have to go ask for forgiveness. Sometimes it means that we need to say, hey, when you said or did that, this, it hurt me. I felt this. And so we have to work on reconciliation. But bitterness will keep us from some things. And one of them is that bitterness, and if we let that root, that stronghold of bitterness, that root of bitterness, it is going to feed, that root will feed that bitterness if we do not seek the Lord, seek to be holy by surrendering ourselves to the Lord and making our effort. And our effort to live at peace and be holy is to surrender ourselves to Jesus. He's the one who makes us holy. Our effort is to say, God, here I am. Here I am. Do the work that only you can do. But that bitterness is a matter we have to come to God and say, Lord, help me to forgive. And forgiveness is not forgetting. It is taking our hands from around someone's neck. It doesn't forget what they did to us. That's, so you need to forgive and forget. Well, sometimes we need to remember so we don't get hurt again. But it's, bitterness is taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It just doesn't work. It kills us is what it's doing. And so it keeps us from really following God and being who he wants us to be. And so it is a stronghold. This is what the enemy of our soul wants for us, is to get us in a place where we're so bitter, we're so angry, we're so resentful that we cannot let God do anything in our lives. I think about, well, what do you mean God can do everything? Yeah, well, to some degree, he gave us free will. We can say no, we can reject God. We can say, no, you ain't doing that, God. Well, yeah, I'm going to, but I may just have to do it with someone else because you're not surrendered to me. I think about when Jesus went into certain villages and it says all he could do was heal a few people because of their lack of faith. To have this root of bitterness puts us in a place where we start being God because we're going to hold it against them. I've been recently in a situation where I was deeply wounded and hurt about 13 years ago, and recently I found out that, I don't want to say there was some settlement, but I feel like there was some sort of, I guess it was settlement for me. It was not revenge, it was reckoning, and there's a difference. Reckoning is settlement. It's settled in my heart, and the Lord just said, you know what, it's okay. I took care of it. It can't hurt you anymore. The chapter is closed. That chapter is closed. And the image that came to mind is a book closing. I finished it. It's done. We learned some things, learned what to do, what not to do, got some blessings, got some things that didn't seem like blessings, but probably were in disguise. But we need to just take a look at for a moment to just say to ourselves, is there any bitterness? Is there a root of bitterness in my life? We just had election day 2 days ago from the day I'm recording this. And, I can only imagine when a candidate loses, it can be probably a bit of bitterness that comes along with that. Why? Well, they didn't elect me, and, dumb people, if they'd have been smart. There's all sorts of things that could come up in our lives that the enemy of our soul will latch onto and say, and start creating a root of bitterness. And roots grow. It's funny as we're getting ready to go into the winter season. Isn't that a beautiful background our producer found for me? Yay, thanks for that. Beautiful, wonderful. Anyway, looking at that tree, people don't realize that tree roots grow in the winter. They don't grow in the summer. They grow in the winter. And sometimes it's in those barren, cold, dark days of winter, I'm using that as a metaphor right now, that the roots of bitterness can start growing because we don't feel like there's anything going there. And maybe the idle brain is the devil's playground, as the old song says. And the enemy will start coming in and using those opportunities to let that root of bitterness grow. What is the solution to that? Forgiveness. Forgiveness and faith, trusting God that he will take care of things so that we can live at peace. And one of the ways we live at peace with all men is to release that bitterness. Doesn't mean we got to be their best friend. I think about when Jesus said he did not entrust himself to them because he knew it was in their heart. It's not always safe to trust somebody. It's not always safe to trust somebody. And when trust is broken, it's got to be rebuilt. And so we have to be careful that we do not let the root of bitterness, that stronghold of bitterness, grow, but let the root of forgiveness grow. That what are we feeding our souls that is going to move us in the direction that we are become more like Jesus? If anybody had a reason to have a root of bitterness, it was Jesus. All the things that were done to him. And what does he say on the cross? Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing. Sometimes we get hurt by people who they don't know they've done it. They don't know they've done it. But, if you get cut with a knife on accident or on purpose, it still will leave a wound. And we can let that fester, or we can forgive, or we can just let it continue to be a root of bitterness. And we can forgive and move on, because life is too short. And we are called to be holy. Not holier than thou. That's not what I'm saying. Be holy because the Lord your God is holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. And it doesn't mean we got to have it all together. It means that we are in a right relationship with God. We're yielded to God and letting God form us and transform us by the renewing of our mind. That includes forgiveness and letting God deal with the things that have hurt us in life. So I'm going to leave it right there. Turn to the Lord. Let Him give Him your root of bitterness. Confess that stronghold in your life. Break that stronghold and ask for forgiveness for holding on to it, letting it be there, but also maybe forgiving the people who have allowed that stronghold to come in. So until next time, keep chasing the wind. I'm Pastor Mark. Grace and peace.